Another week in paradise at the Kibbutz. Behind me, the lovely rolling hills of the Upper Galilee. It was lyrical, but I'm getting ready to get back on the road because of the fact that I wasn't going on this travel just to stay put in one particular place, but it was, again, a very nice respite to hang out and just enjoy myself. To start off the week, it's Valentine's Day. And when you're in a foreign culture without the roots of the culture that you know, these kinds of holidays are paid no attention. So it might as well not have been Valentine's Day on the Kibbutz. But for me, it was kind of a big deal because I didn't have a Valentine. And I was thinking of home, and it made me commiserate about missing my culture. But nonetheless, you had to be working, you had to be doing whatever you needed to do to stay put on the Kibbutz. And Valentine's Day was, in many ways, no big deal, but a little bit of heartache. And I'm thinking a lot about leaving the Kibbutz because it was just getting a little bit confined for me, kind of too small. I'm not a small town boy. But I'm thinking a week or 10 days, I'm going to be out of here. I'm going to be hitting the road again, leaving this home-like place. But the big deal was I needed the money. So until I got the money, it wasn't going to happen. One day, I wasn't feeling that well, and people said I looked sick last night, the night before, so I took the day off. I thought maybe I was getting a cold, but I hung out and I read Lord of the Rings, and the book was getting better. I had one volume of it, and it had all three of the books in it. It was very fine print, and I was really enjoying it. One of my buddies, Big Al, he was getting sick with bronchitis. He was there with his girlfriend, Polly, from Detroit. And, it was kind of an excuse not to work. I probably could have, but I didn't. And I hung out all day just in my room, in my bunk. So my buddy, Jim Camper, who had been with me since the day that I met him at the Kibbutz office in Tel Aviv, all of a sudden, he says, I'm leaving. I'm going to Denmark. I said, well, he's gone. And that, of course, changes your life because Jim wasn't going to be there anymore. And I was alone again, really, even though he wasn't my partner, but he was an anchor to me. And I read from my journal, today spring feels really like it's really spring. I didn't work in the morning and was sort of forced to do some painting. Yeah, these folks, they kept an eye on you. Nina, the big boss there, she's a small woman, but the big boss, she kept her knee on your neck, so to speak. And if you were screwing around too much, they'd throw you right out. So you had to keep up, your work schedule. The food at the Kibbutz was pretty good. It was 3 meals a day, lunch being the big meal. And after being there for 4 or 5 weeks, I found out I was actually gaining some weight from my journal. 17 February 1971. I just put my bell bottoms on that I brought with me. And I'm fat as shit. Too much eating here. I've got to hit the road. Now you have to understand, I was a skinny kid. I weighed about 150 pounds. I could eat whatever I wanted and didn't seem to gain an ounce, except for the year I went to Michigan State, where they had some great bread and ice cream in the cafeteria. But the food was pretty damn good. And I was putting on some weight. Probably weighed about 165. Now also, one night, we had a spaghetti dinner cooked by an Italian fellow named Luciano, who we called the Luch. We called him a fantastic mafia guy. Somehow or another, with some hot plates and things, he boiled some water and made up some noodles and served us a fantastic spaghetti dinner that was the joy of all of us. The key to me leaving the Kibbutz was money. I could act like a big shot and say, I could have gone, I had freedom and all this stuff, but you still needed money. And it was when I found out that I had money that I knew I could actually leave there. Otherwise, I was dependent. So on 20 February 1971, I write in my journal, soon it will be au revoir to the old kibbutz. I have a registered letter waiting for me at the kibbutz post office. It's my $200 and I'll be off to Eilat very soon. Who knows? You need to understand that when you're in the kibbutz, they didn't deliver mail to you. You went down to a place they called the post office, and a guy looked like an old-fashioned post office to see if he had a letter for you, because you got a box when you were staying as a volunteer. I continue to write, this place is very small, and I feel very closed in by the social structures that have been forming around me, through, and about me. Yeah, something about my personality. I seem to attract a lot of people to depend on me and to act around me, and this situation was just getting too small. So when I knew that $200 was there, I'm like, okay, it's time to hit the road. Although I really enjoyed the kibbutz, I was really missing the culture that I came from. And one day, over at the guest house, they brought in a showing of the Yellow Submarine movie by the Beatles. Well, I really loved that movie because it was the Beatles and it was a lot of fun. And it was so great to see it. It just got me going. And even the next day, that's all I could do was think about the wonderful lyrical music and those great Beatles and how much fun it was. I still don't believe this wonderful film was here and I saw it. I drank wine and shit and I'm stoned. That's what I wrote in my journal that day. I also was thinking about trekking to Afghanistan through untold lands, and the adventure seems heavy and a bit scary for me. But I think I'll do it. I can only play it one step at a time. I'm taking my plans too seriously, but it's on to Eilat in the south of Israel for me soon. They do have winter in Israel, and it was wintertime. However, it was getting nicer and nicer as the days got longer. I write in my journal, the weather has been absolutely beautiful for 4 days, and I love the sun. Yesterday, I worked on a hillside garden, picking weeds. I missed lunch because no one came and got me. I was lost in an abyss of timelessness. I can still remember being out there just la-di-da, picking the weeds, enjoying the sun, and then missing lunch. It was kind of a piss off because of the fact that lunch was the big meal, but as I said before, I was picking up some weight. As a matter of fact, at one point, right along this way, I tried on my bell-bottom jeans that were in my pack, and I couldn't quite fit in and I was having a hard time buttoning them up. But I knew that the future was coming where a meal was hard to come by. When you're on the road, it's tough and you can't rely on anything because you don't know where you're going, you don't know what you're eating, and everything is really challenging. Whereas here in the kibbutz, it was more than home-like and the food was consistent, plentiful, and very good. There were ladies on the kibbutz, the volunteers. You really could not get involved with the kibbutzniks. They kind of were very standoffish, and it was kind of an unwritten rule that you were not going to get involved with the kibbutzniks much. But there was a Dutch girl named Trudy that came with Hank, the other Dutch fellow. And I really liked these Dutch people. I had a lot of fun with them. I just liked their culture. I loved Amsterdam, and it was a lot for me to talk about with them. Trudy was really a decent young lady, and I was kind of attracted to her, and it began some kind of a little bit of a romantic cavorting with her, which was kind of fun because I hadn't really had much of that since I had left Morocco. The other thing about Morocco was I was carrying my Moroccan flute, really more of a recorder. And more I was playing, more and more, and I was enjoying it, and even performing a little bit for people. I wasn't very good, but entertainment was hard to come by on the kibbutz. In fact, one of the things that we did have, and I actually researched this recently, is we had cassette tape machines, recording machines, and ones that played store-bought tapes because these cassette tapes were the kind of the method of music in those days. So a few people had some music machines, I called them, and they had some music, and we started playing, and it was a big deal, and we would be dancing and having fun. Us volunteers, it was part of the nighttime events, drinking a little bit, maybe some of that fine Lebanese hashish, but we were partying down quite a bit. And it was really fun. And then I'd bring out my flute once in a while. And a lot of dancing started happening. We were dancing crazy people because we really, again, missed that culture. And Israelis had a different culture. But the European American culture, which is where we volunteers basically came from, that was more in tune with the music of the day that I was used to. The room I was occupying in this kind of row of rooms, by the way, you didn't have a bathroom in your room. There was a shower area with bathrooms. You had to walk to that. And there were a few of these rows of rooms around it where the volunteers had their own little village, in a sense, in it. And again, you got to know all these people. Well, Bonnie, I called her the big redheaded girl. She was kind of a large lady, and she was a real character. I didn't like her much, but we used to have parties in the different rooms. Well, my room was the end room, and it was a larger room. So the parties would oftentimes gravitate there because more of it could fit into it. I didn't really like it, but it was social pressure. And I really did dig these Dutch people, and it was fun to talk with them, but it was getting, again, a little small for me. Small town America, small town Israel. No, I'm a big city boy. At this point in time, I'm really starting to get itchy. I'm thinking ahead to the beach in Eilat. I've heard a lot about it. Of course, you don't know anything in those days. There's very few photos or anything of that sort. No internet. There's literally zero technology at this point. One time I talked to my family, I had to go someplace to find a phone. I had to do that when I was in Morocco too. But I'm looking forward to Eilat, and I'm thinking, this should be beautiful. I can't wait to get out of here. We're going to be listening, again, as we have throughout these weeks, to some passages that I read from the book that Fred and I wrote together, Wanderer, the Ultimate Hippie Trail Journey. And when we read that, I want you to appreciate that that is one hell of a book. And in many ways, the whole reason I'm doing this, besides commemorating the 50-year adventure, is to try to see if we can get some traction on our book. So check it out. We don't have an audio version yet in terms of published, but I did in fact read the whole thing in. And when I did it, I have to tell you, I became very impressed with the book. You know, when you put it together and you put it piece by piece, but by going and actually reading it from start to finish, I really think it's a great book. And I think it's one you should read and recommend to your friends and family. Looking forward to next week. It will be my last week at the kibbutz. Actually, it's a transitional week. Finally, I leave the kibbutz with three volunteers. And I go off with them and my friend Hank, the Dutch fella's car. He actually somehow or another had brought a vehicle to Israel. I'm still not sure how the hell he got it in. And we went off with him, and then we start the real adventure, the road happening. You know, this vacation from the road was not emblematic of my journey. Most of the time, it was on the highway, getting from place to place, going to a place, spending a few days, maybe a week at most, and getting on. Where here we are, over a month on the kibbutz. So we are looking forward to the transition, and we're going to hit the road. We're going to get into the West Bank. We're going to see some Arab villages and some really kind of interesting places where the Arab culture is, and on to Jericho, which was really a lot of fun. We go to Jerusalem, the Dead Sea, back to Jericho. And again, it's action, action, action. The road is coming soon next week, so stay tuned. The volunteers, who are my social life here, come from all over the world, but mostly from Europe or America. People are coming and going all the time. The regular kibbutzniks have their own social life and keep to themselves. It makes for a weird dynamic. The people you see all the time don't want to become too friendly, and the people that are friendly are here and gone, replaced with newbies. So,
I keep to myself a lot when I'm not working. Nightly solitude with my thoughts has been good for me. I'm trying to gain some clarity and insight about myself. Most often, I struggle in vain. I need to start making plans to move on from here. If I stay too long, I will stagnate, become too mellow, and rot. By the end of February, I need to move on, perhaps southern Israel at the Red Sea to Eilat.